Well, first and foremost, really thank you so much for being here. Gosh, I know you're busy. If you're like everybody else I know, everything's on fire all the time. So for you to take a few minutes out of your day, 60 minutes for this conversation, for this class, I really appreciate it. It tells me a lot about who you are as a leader. It tells me a lot about what you're committed to as a leader, and it tells me a lot about your organization. So even if we haven't had the opportunity to meet, gosh, I feel like I do know quite a bit about you already. So thank you. Hey, Don from Ocean View. It's lovely to have you here. So I'm going to share the screen. All right. So here we are. So if you don't know me, those of you that don't know me, I am Luca Richards. And to give you a sense of place, I live just here outside of Portland, Maine. A lot of our friends from Falmouth, just down the street, are here. And I am a facilitator and coach with Vital Work. So Vital Work is a culture transformation firm that empowers organizations to be intentional around culture. And we do that by elevating the energy of people, prioritizing team connection, and choosing courage and leadership. So I want to just quickly acknowledge some of our team who are here that I can see right now. So you'll be hearing quite a bit from Haley. She's helping me produce today's class. Our muse, one of our two leaders, Natalie Johnson, is here. And I see Michelle Spear is here. And if I'm missing anybody, I'm sorry. I'll get to you in a little bit. I just have a few people right on my screen. And I want to just share quickly with you about why we're here. So we're here as part of our culture journey series. So this class is called Trust, the Secret Ingredient. And there'll be a couple more opportunities to join us for complimentary classes later in the year. So you can join our amazing Lorraine Williams for an accountability course in August. And Michelle, who is here, Michelle Spear, will be leading a course on connection this October. So we would love to have you join us for those courses. The intention of this course is to strengthen team culture and connection by building a deeper understanding of trust. You may have got that from the name. And we'll break down trust into its four key elements to make it easier to recognize, talk about, and improve within teams. We'll explore how trust is built, broken, and rebuilt so we can have clearer, more open conversations about it and recognize its impact on us. So, while trust is essential to connection, it can be difficult to talk about. It brings up a lot of personal experiences, assumptions, and expectations. And that makes it really challenging to navigate in team environments or in life environments. And however, by breaking it down into its core elements, we can develop a shared language to discuss it more effectively, leading to stronger relationships and healthier team dynamics. So we're going to be talking about that today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of logistics. There's no breakout rooms today, and you are free to participate in whatever way feels comfortable for you today. You're welcome to come off camera, stay on camera. We're going to ask you a few times to reflect. And don't let those opportunities for reflection be an opportunity for distraction. You may want to have a journal or a piece of paper handy that you can keep and refer back to later. But in this class, I'm going to give you lots of opportunities to share with the whole group or write in the chat or just reflect within your own mind space. However you best process information is great for today. So with that said, let's have our first reflection activity. So I want you to right now bring into your mind's eye and think about someone in your workplace or personal life who you trust. So for our purposes today, we're more interested in your work and your team, but for some of you, might have more charge around trust with some people in your personal life. So either is fine. Whatever really resonates with you more is great. But right now, think about someone in your workplace or personal life who you trust, and think about what are the characteristics, attitudes, or behaviors that demonstrate that you're able to trust them? What are the characteristics, attitudes, and behaviors? So take a moment, think on this. Some of you will have answers right away, and we would love for you to drop those right into the chat. What are some of the essential components of trust, characteristics, attitudes, behaviors? If you have something that you want to get out loud, we'd love to hear from a few of you in person. So go ahead and come off mute and share. What are some of the characteristics, attitudes, and behaviors that enable you to trust people? Who would share with the whole group?
I'll share.
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Integrity.
Great, thank you. I see in the chat, honesty is coming up quite a bit. Again, integrity, as Jennifer said. Confidentiality, really great. Anybody else want to come off mute and share? What are some of the...
Reliability, doing what you say you're going to do and doing it.
Oh yeah, thanks, Pam. Really great. Authentic, empathy, connection. Yeah, anybody else want to break the ice and come off mute? These are the hard questions.
I'll come off mute. Good morning. I dropped the first three things that popped into my mind right away, but I think Amy put in here willingness to listen is actually more important than almost all of the things that I put in there.
Gosh, willingness to listen. Yeah, thank you. Is it Alea or Aaliyah?
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Okay, really good. So many of you will have heard of Stephen R. Covey, who's famous for 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says that trust is the glue of life. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. So we could say there's many definitions of trust out there, and the one that we're going to base today's class on is one by Charles Feltman, who's a business coach and author of The Thin Book of Trust. And his definition is particularly powerful because his perspective measures trust with its absence. So that's one way in which we experience trust is in how we don't always experience trust with people. So Feltman contrasts trust with distrust, offering a clear framework for discussion. So let's take a look at his definitions. He says, trust is choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. And I'll say that again. Trust is choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. Now, these could be both internal and external vulnerabilities. So for example, internal vulnerabilities could be, well, our hopes, even our status, our dreams, our emotional well-being, reputation, effort, energy. And then more tangible vulnerabilities could be money, possessions, responsibility, even tasks that we delegate to other people. So Feltman goes on to describe distrust is the sense that what is important to me is not safe with this person in this situation or any situation. So one key takeaway is that trust is situational. It's not absolute. So trust is not an all or nothing. We don't simply trust or distrust someone entirely. Instead, we trust people in specific situations while withholding trust in other. I have an example from my life. One of my really good friends, I trust explicitly everywhere except in getting anywhere on time. So that's fine unless I've given my word to someone or something that I need to be somewhere at a certain time. So for example, this is not a friend that I would call to get me to the airport on time, right? I trust them everywhere in my life, but not in getting places on time. So we could look at breaking trust down into specific situations versus an all or nothing. By identifying where trust is strong and where it struggles, we can move beyond treating trust as a vague or overwhelming concept. Instead, saying, I don't trust this person, we could ask, where do I trust them? And where do I struggle to trust them? Is this a trust issue in general or just a specific situation? All right, so thinking about your work team, and again, if something resonates for you in your personal life, that's okay too. When it comes to your team, what is something you value that feels vulnerable? And maybe you do it anyway because you trust the people around you. I'll give you some examples while you think on this. For example, giving or receiving feedback, or even applying feedback that you've been given. Haley and I were just talking about learning from your partners early, and we were talking about how hard it is sometimes those people closest to you to actually receive or take their feedback or take their coaching. Many of you know that, and that feels really vulnerable in the workplace. Having to say you're out of your depth or you don't know, saying yes to a project that you don't know if you can really handle. So one example from recent body of work I was doing was a nurse in a memory care unit who really obviously values her education and licensure, but chooses to risk that license and make it vulnerable to other people's actions really every day. So those of you in that kind of field, you understand that I'm making vulnerable my life's work, my body of work, my licensure, and in some cases that's vulnerable to somebody else's actions. So I'd love to hear from a couple of you. You can either drop in the chat or the brave souls. Even this is a great example, like coming off mute and sharing with the group. That feels vulnerable. So I'd love to hear from a couple of you. What are some things that you value that feel vulnerable to other people's actions at work or in your life?
I'll come off mute. I think something that I value is more or less honesty. Somebody that's willing to step up front and say, I failed or it's my fault, and explain how they failed, what was wrong. And it's that team around you that makes you feel vulnerable because you're not sure if they're going to support you or not support you, and value that honesty that you're bringing forth.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Gosh, great to see you. You see your name on here. I would say, yeah, from what you're sharing, like what feels important to you or that you value is honesty and being able to rely on your team. That's a great example of this. If I want to move forward and I know that teamwork's really important, I make vulnerable a value of teamwork with the rest of the team. They also have to participate in that teamwork, and we'll get into some of those other points really great that you're saying, Michelle. Anybody else? What are you seeing about, I see giving feedback from Amy from Visit Portland and worrying that it'll be taken poorly. Anybody else want to come off mute? What are some of the things you value that are vulnerable to other people's actions?
I'll say something, Luca. So I'm in HR. So just like Michelle just said, owning your mistakes is really important, but also keeping specific information confidential. I had to let someone on my team go because I trusted them with information that they then went and told someone else and caused some big issues. And then I couldn't trust her after that. So that's really important, I think.
Yeah, and I get from what you're saying too, a real value around the work you're doing and the confidentiality. And in HR, I know we have a couple people from HR here today. That's really important. How do we have to trust people with the information they have and that information stays confidential. Yeah, Kathy, thank you. That's a really great example. I see Julie saying personal and business reputation, 100% impacted by the whole team. Yeah, I'm putting my name on something. It takes a whole team, and I have to trust that team to be able to deliver. Well, let's take a look at trust from Feltman in 4 components. So here's what I would recommend doing. If you have a blank sheet or your journal, draw a big cross on it so you have 4 quadrants. And in each of those quadrants, just write the words care, sincerity, competence, and reliability. And we're going to break these down individually, but I want to give you an opportunity to think about trust in each of these areas. So we just heard from Michelle and Kathy really about how sometimes you can trust somebody in one area, but not always in every area. And sometimes those big areas are the ones that have maximum impact. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's start with care. So when I trust that someone cares about me, I trust that we're in this together. I trust that you have my intentions in mind as well as your own, that you have positive intentions towards me, and that you understand what I care about and honor that. So really, I would say care is the most fundamental and the most important of the four components for establishing long-term trust. If we trust that somebody cares about us, we're probably more likely and willing to overlook some of those other areas of trust, sincerity, reliability, competence, when we can. When I trust that somebody cares about me, again, I feel like we're in this together. I feel like my interests are taken into account. What this might look like at work is I might say things like, I love working with Kathleen because I feel she has the best interest of our team at heart. She's willing to go to bat for us, even if that means having a hard conversation with her boss. Or I feel like Kyle values me as a person, not just as an employee. So here's what I'd love to do with you. Take a moment. I'm going to give you a minute or so to reflect. Who is somebody in your care quadrant, who is someone you care that you trust cares about you? And how do you know? In what ways do you feel supported? So what I'm looking for you to jot down here is you don't have to put down the who, but put down the what. What is it that they're doing, saying, being that leaves you in the experience of care trust? How do you know? And again, we're interested in your work team, but this may be an easier one to look into your real life, into your friends, families, people that you know care about you. So you keep working, and I would love to hear from some of you. I'm seeing Jennifer drop in open communication. Great. Checking in with words of affirmation. Yes, love the love languages. Natalie, someone who offers to take something off my plate. Yes, that's really important. Would anybody like to come off mute and risk making vulnerable, sharing to the whole group? What is it that how you know that people in your life uh, have care trust for you?
Hey,
Chris,
Luca.
oh, go ahead, Joshua.
Yeah, I'll come off of mute for this one. Um, I would say that they follow up and ask about life outside of work, and if there is some sort of important event in life that they are aware of, that they follow up afterward. Not necessarily something that you just tell them about, like, you say, hey, it's my birthday, or they know it's your birthday. Or they know that your kiddo had something coming up that was, impacting your life. If they follow up afterward to see how it is or how it went, it shows care outside of work as an individual, not just as a part of the work, a part of the job.
100%. Yeah, I can't say any better than that. Thank you. It's really good. Um,
Luca, I'm happy to add in as well. I think for me, from a professional perspective, for my boss, he's not reactive. So if I'm sharing something with him, I think he's really good about looking at bigger picture, taking other viewpoints of like what could everyone be feeling or thinking, and not just reacting. So I feel like I trust that I can go to him and confide or ask for support or, raise a concern, and he's not going to just react. He's going to digest it. So I trust that he's looking at everyone's perspective and not just mine.
Yeah, thanks, Krista. I love that too. I know that somebody cares about me when they're able to listen, and you said this really great, but they're not listening to catch me out, or they're not listening for the lack or scarcity or the gap. They're actually listening for what I need versus what's missing that they need. And I think that's really important for care trust.
Definitely.
Yeah, so good. Okay, maybe time for one more on care. How do you know that the people at work care about you? I'm also seeing in the chat consistency, thoughtful communication, 100%. It's really great. Okay, let's move forward. Sincerity. So in your sincerity box, well, sincerity is a couple of different things. First of all, it means I observe you as being genuine, and there seems to be alignment between what you say you want to do and you're honest, and you can be believed to act with integrity even when it's hard. So sincerity means simply, I mean what I say what I mean, and I act accordingly. Sincerity looks like you're honest and you can be believed. Sincerity looks like acting with integrity. Just a quick note on integrity. Most of us define integrity as what I do when no one's looking. The only thing I would add to that is that integrity is actually an observable action in other people. So integrity isn't exclusively an inward philosophy. It is something I can observe in people. Are they actually doing what they said they were going to do when they said they were going to do it? And you act with alignment with your words. So in the work, I might say, I always know where things stand with Tanisha. She's kind, but she doesn't sugarcoat. I might say, what I appreciate about Jordan is that he really walks the talk. He says he wants us all to disconnect from work during evenings and weekends, and he actually does that himself. This is a really great example, I think, as a leader of a group, and many of you are in leadership. People are looking to us to make sure that our words and actions align. So for example, if a leader tells their team that work-life balance is important, say it's one of the values written up on the wall, and they encourage, as an example of that, for their people to unplug or to take weekends free, but that same leader is seen and witnessed as working late, responding to emails on vacation. I may even observe that leader rewarding other people on the team for doing the opposite of that stated goal, right? So for being available, for responding nights and weekends, I might witness that as a coworker. So what I might say about someone I distrust in this area is, maybe I'd say something like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. I might say they're two-faced. I might say, they're just giving lip service, or they tell people what they want to hear. All right, so as a quick reflection, in your reflection quadrant for sincerity, who is someone that you trust to be sincere? And how do you know? And in what ways do you feel supported? In what actions, in what language? And please feel free to start dropping your ideas in the chat. I'll try to capture those. And we'd love to hear from a couple of you off mute, if you're willing to share with the whole group. Who is someone that you trust to be sincere? How do you know? And in what ways do you feel supported? Christy, consistent. They own their mistakes. Always give me honest, constructive feedback from Kathy. Helps me look at issues in different ways to come up with different solutions. So help in engaging in problem solving. Willing to share their imperfections openly. Great, thanks, Natalie. Anybody want to come off mute? Anybody have a good example of this from your work life? How do you know people are sincere?
I can share. I'm an HR office manager in an accounting firm, and this past tax season was very stressful. And I got out of balance with my work and family, and I got very vulnerable with my boss and said, I'm overwhelmed. It's affecting my family. I feel like I'm letting you guys down, but I need to set a boundary and a barrier to make sure that I have time for and with my family. And he did not question it. He did not push back at all. He comforted me and said, none of us think that none of us feel that you're dropping balls or letting anybody down or are concerned with you, but we do want to make sure that you maintain that balance. And then it continued after our busy season. So when they're supportive and they allow you to not put work first and the job first, but that it should fit in as a whole.
Yeah. Thanks, Paris. You know, one thing I would say is that you bring up a great point. So what I'm hearing in your story is a little bit of care trust, well, a lot of care trust, and there is that need for sincerity, because if they said it one way, but then you experience it in the pressures in a different way, you would feel differently. So what I'm doing with my hands is talking about how these 4 areas work as sliders. So they, although they do impact each other, so care trust might be really high, therefore sincerity trust is a little bit higher, or it's possible that I don't have care trust with somebody, but say I really experience them in this other way with trust, which is competence. So they are sliders that impact each other and work together, although they can be really separate. So in your case, you know, what I'm hearing you say is probably a nice combination of all 4. And for some of us, like in Kathy's story earlier, you know, some of them might be high, like care might be high, but competence might be really low, and that's going to impact our ability to perform as a team. Yeah, thank you. It's a great example. Okay, let's move forward. Reliability. So reliability comes down to the ability to manage our commitments, promises, and the requests we make and those made of us. So many of you who I've taken classes with in the past, you know, requests are huge. Requests are happening all the time in businesses and interactions. They're not usually languaged like requests. They usually sound like, hey, it would be nice if we had the day after Thanksgiving off. Right, but it's kind of a request. So part of our work as leaders is to actually distinguish what is a request. Are you making a request? And as a result, we can respond to that in an impactful way. And so requests are happening all the time. And we make requests of others, and they make requests of us. And we just want to make sure those are really explicit. And that has a huge part of what we're talking about here with reliability trust, along with managing our commitments and our promises. So reliability trust looks like you can count on me to deliver what I promise. You do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. You'll be honest with me if you cannot deliver. You can be counted on to get the job done. So in the work, this might sound like Jamal is a person you can count on. If he takes on a project, you can be sure he'll get it done. Or when Suzanne says she has something covered, I don't have to worry about it. I just know it'll be taken care of. To distinguish reliability a bit further, reliability does not mean delivering exactly as promised 100% of the time. It means that when you can't, you communicate and renegotiate honestly. And I would say this is the difference between keeping your word and honoring your word. You cannot always keep your word. External forces do not permit us to always get things done on time. There's always, like I said at the beginning of the call, something's on fire. You're not able to meet deadlines, or you could get a flat tire, or there could be any number of external forces. But honoring your word means taking accountability for unforeseen circumstances. And when circumstances change, true reliability means updating and renegotiating rigorously and responsibly. So I'm taking accountability. It's not that it's my fault I got a flat tire, but there's still impact over there with you. And I'm willing to take accountability for being late rather than saying, oh, sorry, you know, things happen. Somebody who says, oh, sorry, things happen, we don't experience them as highly reliable people. The people who take accountability, we see them as much more reliable. So what we might say about someone we have distrust in reliability is simply that they don't follow through. They always have excuses. I can never figure out what they expect of me if it's your boss. That we might experience somebody as being unreliable in those areas. Okay, so in your reliability quadrant, take a couple moments and really think about who is someone you trust to be reliable at work or in your life, and what does that look like? How do you know, and in what ways do you feel supported by their language, by their actions, their deeds? what does it look like to be reliable? And please go ahead and drop into the chat if you get any great insights that you'd want to share with the group. It's great. It's really generous to drop into the chat so we can read them out loud. And also it's really great to hear from you in person. So if anybody would like to come off mute, if you've got a point of view around reliability, we'd love to hear from you. I'm seeing responsiveness, timely, accountable. Gosh, these are coming in fast. You guys love this one. They show up, they get things done. Joshua taking ownership of the role and their impacts upon the aspects of the business, both within their team and with anyone they interact with. Accessibility. Yeah, really great. Does anybody want to come off mute for this one? These are great examples. Natalie says, Luca is reliable. I'm going to read this one out loud. Actions checking in, providing feedback, timely, honest, and shows up also to support others. Yeah, thank you, Natalie. You're also very reliable. Okay, let's, Kathy, my HR partner, can be counted on for anything that needs to be done. She's on top of things, accountable for her work, takes ownership, and I don't have to worry about the details. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Really great. Okay, the fourth of our quadrants, competence. Competence, well, let me say it to you this way. Competence is trusting my abilities, but recognizing my limitations and when I need help. So competence means I know I can do this. I don't know if I can do that. You have the skill and knowledge to do what needs to be done in a particular situation. And you have enough self-awareness to know your limits. And you admit when you don't know or need help. Competence is built on having the skills, knowledge, and ability to meet expectations and to handle the job or situation effectively. Trust in competence also grows when a person is willing to acknowledge their limitations. All right, so in the work, it might sound like, I trust Leslie to guide our team through this change. I don't know what's ahead, but I'm glad Leslie's leading the way. Whenever we have technical issues, for all of my friends in IT here today, we see you. Whenever I have technical issues, our IT team is so helpful. I feel like they are always able to fix the problem. I appreciate that Mohammed was honest with us, that he didn't know enough about the situation, and then he relied on our input to make a decision. So Brene Brown, some of you will be familiar with Brene Brown's work. In her research she did around vulnerability, she found that people who admit, I don't know, that actually aligns with integrity and accountability. It shows honesty and commitment to authenticity, which is crucial for trust building. So we are more likely to trust someone who can confidently say, that's outside of my scope, or I don't think I can be effective in this project because I lack the necessary skills. If you think about what makes up competence, this is a great place where Feltman's work really steps in, because it's important for us to understand, and we have more trust in people who will acknowledge what they can do, but are open and authentic about what they cannot do. And this is where competence really shines. Now, competence, again, we were talking about the sliders earlier. I can have complete competence trust in someone on my team without having any sense of care trust, sincerity trust, or even reliability trust. So that slider can stand alone. I can really trust you're going to get the job done based on your skill set without needing to feel any sense of care. Is that ideal? No, of course not. But when we look at these 4 quadrants, this is what gives us access to looking at, it's not all or nothing. There's ways in which we can adapt and adjust to these sliders. Well, let me have a moment for you all to reflect on competence trust. I know that you're all very competent on here, but when you look out into your worlds, what makes up competence trust? When you have that with somebody, how do you know, and in what ways do you feel supported by them? And again, go ahead as you think through this. You can drop your responses in the chat. We'll read as many as we can. And I'd love to hear from a couple of you if something around competence trust stands out to you. How do you know, or how do you have competence trust in the people you work with?
So what I find interesting about competence trust is I feel like it takes longer to assess than a lot of the other ones, because especially if you're dealing with someone whose core competency is not similar to your own, you may not understand what they know. The only way you're really going to see it is how that integrates into your work, and do you have issues or does something come up from the outside? And I feel like it can take a very long time for people who work, in very different areas of, perhaps your company or, what your goals are, before you can really see, oh, this person absolutely knows everything about subject X, and I know all of this stuff about subject Y, and now I can trust that we can put those things together, and they've got my back for the stuff that I don't understand.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. That's great. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we do ladder up other people's competence and skill set based on our own or what we have or don't have, or what they have or don't have, based and as laddered up to our own. I think that's a really great insight. I'm seeing from Kathy over here, effective at leading a project, but will bring in others when something is out of their scope, not afraid to admit they need help. Amazing. I love to work in a team. It is one of my absolute favorite ways to operate. And I think, I don't want to do it all on my own. And there's so much value in even these types of conversations, in having conversations with others and sharing experiences and knowledge, and admitting where we have gaps and maybe where other people can help us fill those gaps. And competence really fills that role. Anybody else on competence? Haley and Michelle, yes, Michelle Spear, are, I know, because they are sincere, ask for help when needed, and ask great questions. Yes, our team at Vital work, definitely a lot of competence, a brilliant, amazing team, and so open to conversation, so open to learning, so open to looking at things in a new way. I agree with that 100%, Natalie. Amazing. Part of that has to do, I'll just say really quickly, something else that we won't cover in this course, having to do with psychological safety and being comfortable in areas of inclusion and learner safety, and even in areas of intellectual friction where we work together. We're not covering it here, but I'm going to give you well, I'll talk about it at the very end, but we have an on-demand course that focuses on other areas of culture, and psychological safety is part of that course. So I'll share that information with you. And I think, Haley, that comes in the follow-up email. Okay, so now you've got your 4 quadrants, you've got your notes, or you've got your mind notes. Think about somebody, bring into view a person in the workplace with whom you have trust issues. Not necessarily huge trust issues, but in one of these areas, potentially, or all of them, you can recognize that there's some gaps in your trust. Think about a person in the workplace with whom you have trust issues. Does anybody not have anybody in the workplace with trust issues? Todd, yeah, you're like, I don't know. Well, you can look outside of work. Certainly, there may be people in your life you have more trust issues than at work. And if you work alone, you're in big trouble here. But you can look outside of yourself. Okay, so think about a person where you have trust issues for this next exercise. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes on each slide, but I want you to consider that person. We're going to start by thinking about them. In what ways or what do you believe to be at the heart of your hesitation to trust this person? And now you can look to your 4 areas: care, sincerity, reliability, and competence. That might be a great broad strokes to begin. What exactly do they do or not do that tells me this is an issue? So we're looking for tangible actions or language that lead you to believe that they can't be trusted in certain areas. And this is a good one. If I gave you a magic wand, what do you wish they would do instead? Okay, what do you wish they would do instead? So a great way to do this exercise is get a blank piece of paper and draw a line halfway through. Above the line, put in your thinking about you notes. Okay, and we'll get to the bottom in a bit, but thinking about them, what do you believe to be at the heart of your hesitation to trust this person? What exactly do they do or not do that tells me this is an issue? And what do I wish they would do instead? Michelle's laughing. Michelle, do you work alone? She says, I'm over here laughing at that. So Michelle says they're unreliable. They fail to do what they say they will do. They don't deliver on their assigned deliverables. I wish they would be a better communicator. That would help reach out for help when needed. Yeah, really great.
Yeah, I work alone.
Oh, you do? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and you definitely have trust issues with your coworkers. Yeah, so good. Thank you for that. All right, so take another minute or so, and I'm going to let you work on this part, and I'm also going to give you the next part, so you can toggle between the two if that's going to be helpful in your thinking process or in your journaling process. So the next piece of this, of course, thinking about you. Gosh, this is the hard work. But if you were able to come up with a lot of things that they're doing wrong, you want to be equally generous with yourself. Imagine now that you're their lawyer. Okay. Think again about the same relationship. It could be a situation over a relationship. What are you doing or not doing that may be contributing to diminished trust? Okay. Think again about the same relationship. What are you doing or not doing that may be contributing to diminished trust? So the questions, the prompts are, what am I doing or not doing that may be undermining trust, or even just making it more difficult to repair? What am I willing to acknowledge or take ownership for? Is there a willingness to do that? Kathy and Michelle are realizing from worlds apart that they have the same employees. Love that. Love these connections. So great. And you can toggle between the two. I think that's helpful sometimes. Shifting between, okay, let me think about them and what I wish they would do. And let me think about me. Gosh, am I holding on to something? Am I locked into some way of thinking or seeing the world or seeing myself that's actually preventing trust to be rebuilt in this area? Leah, forcing accountability so it appears I am targeting them or throwing them under the bus. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, accountability is really tricky. So in our culture journey, and I wonder if Lorraine will talk about this in the August training, but accountability has to be more than a punitive measure. So a lot of you are here from HR, it feels like, but we think about accountability as punitive, but accountability must be baked into our culture as something that we actually do for each other, not at each other. And I think in some ways, 100%, if we're thank you for being so generous there, Leah. But if we're looking to cause accountability, gosh, that's from us, not from them. And what we actually want is for them to take ownership, not for us to impose, what we think is the right thing to do. It's really tricky.
So I'm going to jump off mute for a second because I might have communicated that incorrectly. What I mean by forcing their accountability is by not doing the work that I am capable of doing, like doing their part of the project or their part of the job, to get it across the finish line or to the next phase. And when the question comes up, like, what's the problem? Then it's obvious who hadn't done their part versus kind of covering it up. So that's what I mean by forcing accountability, right? Like, I'm not walking to them saying, you will do your part. I just won't do it for you. Whereas in the past, so that's what I'm saying. That's what I do. Could I do it and keep the project moving? And so it might, right, it might cause the tension or the frustration between damage the relationship or keep it from being positive.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think, that's such a great example. I think what I hear you saying, and tell me if I'm getting this right, or what you hear when I say this back to you, is that due to a breakdown in trust, you are no longer willing to take on that extra step of responsibility with that person or in that situation. You're no longer willing to put yourself at risk to go further than you need to. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. Or even further than I should, right?
Mm.
Just because I may have the knowledge or the skill to do that portion of things, it's not in my job jar. It's not my part. And by doing it, then the project still moves forward. And even if we're working as a team, then we all look great. But at the same time, I don't trust them to do their part. So again, overstepping, doing too much. Like, again, if I'm allowing you to do your part, trusting that you will, and then when you don't, I don't swoop in and and fix it. It's the account, and that's why I said I may have used the wrong terms, but forcing it to be seen as to who's supposed to be doing what, who hasn't done what. um so
Yeah.
those are the things that I'm doing, right? So that person may not trust me anymore because I won't hide their flaws or step out in front and move the project along and all of those things.
Yeah, it's so good. Thank you, so
Yeah.
generous. Thank you
I'm
so
gonna
much.
I'm gonna step in and comment on what Aaliyah said, and I agree because I have done that as well. I'm so concerned that the project moves forward that despite the fact that there's a lapse somewhere, I overcompensate and make up for it and make like it's no big deal because I don't want to offend, but I want to make sure the project gets accomplished. And then sometimes that works, and other times I get accused of overstepping my bounds.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think glossing over, I'm hearing you say too, like glossing over or making it okay is also, it's hard to repair trust if we're not actually willing to address how somebody's actions make us feel or meet in the middle somewhere. I think we do this all the time. I think certainly I hear this with organizations. Richard, this might be different than your situation, but where there's like a lot of call outs or something. And so as a group, as a community, we're not thinking about how our actions impact other people. And so even though if you call out and I have to really work hard that day, when you do come back, I always say, that's okay. It's all right. Don't worry about it. But over time, those don't worry about it. It's okay. The glossing over, the stepping over actually diminishes trust, I think also.
I agree. Yeah, it's a kind of enabling, and it ultimately is not going to be successful.
Yeah, gosh, so good. Anybody else on thinking about them, thinking about you?
My or I guess my comment is separate from like project work. I have a team like pretty diverse in age, and the younger, more green folks, with a couple years under their belt, feel like they have 20 years of experience and are very confident in what they're doing. And so I try to be a really strong coach and give feedback. And I know this group is you manage all these different communication styles, but for me, I am actually like shifting the feedback portion and sometimes just letting them feel heard and just listening as opposed to like trying to help them grow immediately. Because I think the trust is coming from like, am I heard? It almost needs to feel like their idea. So, um, instead of like constantly trying to coach and not just like I'm not trying to exactly be a friend as I find this balance, but more so just listening and not always giving feedback, which might sound like a catch 22, but I'm finding with this group that for them to trust me, they just kind of need to feel heard and not always like I'm trying to help.
Mm, Yeah, amazing. It's the distinction between solving technical, like giving
Mhm.
technical solutions versus adaptive solutions. So technical, like it feels like giving advice or trying to incept values, goals,
Yes.
like
And
that
it
versus.
just, I think it's a learning about like when we think about trust, to me, like feedback it's not just you're not doing good. I always tell my team, like, good, better, best. You came in and that was really good, but I want to help you be better and then continue to grow versus if I don't redline that, we're so lucky to receive feedback. And so I think trust is just establishing like, what does feedback really mean and what's the purpose?
So good. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing. All right, let's just move on for time to strategies. Okay, I want to leave you with something that we can take and put into action. So for each of these 4 areas, there may be some specific strategies that we could do to repair, rebuild, regrow trust. So let's take a look, and if you can jot down your thoughts if you'd like to along the way. But let's take a look at care. So some strategies to work with care trust would be listening with intention, asking good questions. Gosh, one of the things I'm working with so much with leaders right now is leading from inquiry, which is leading, and Krista, this has to do with what you're leading. It sounds like you're doing this great. It's actually leading with the questions versus the answers. And so important, and develops a sense of care trust, which is, again, probably the most important of the 4 for long-term trust. Leading with curiosity instead of judgment. Learn what's important to people. Practice empathy. Joshua said that earlier, like really getting to know people even outside of work, like getting to know what's important to them. Strategies for sincerity trust, being truthful, say what you mean. And I think this one's really important. Keep your messages consistent from person to person, making sure you have one conversation around a topic with whoever you're having that top conversation with. So important for making sure that our teams are moving forward. Make sure your actions align with your words, of course. Be a person of your word. Strategies for reliability. Be honest about your limitations. It can be really hard, especially when we're trying to grow or do a good job. It can feel so counter to say, actually, I don't know how to do that. It can be really tricky, but again, it's proven that people will actually see us as more competent when we do. Only make commitments on which you can follow through. Yeah, really important. And if you cannot address it early and honestly, make sure you're renegotiating your commitments. And then strategies for competence. Clarify which areas you are competent in and which you are not. When you don't know something, ask for help, ask for feedback from others about your skill and performance. Okay, we just have a couple minutes left, but I'd love to hear from some of you. And this is great, things you already know. What are some things you know for sure about strategies for trust? I'll bring the other slide back up so you can look at it. But is there anything you know to do or that works for you? Drop it in the chat. We'd love to get a few. We've got a couple minutes to hear from you. What are some great strategies you can teach us about repairing and building trust? What are some things you do? Having regular check-ins. Yeah, Diane, so good. Having regular check-ins with team members, so important. Yeah, again, the sliders of care trust. I'm here with you. We're in this together. Meetings cause that. And then in those meetings, meetings are where culture happens inside of organizations. If your meetings are 100% informational, consider shifting your meetings to being cultural meetings where you share information. And what I mean by that is when you're together, that wants to be the highest bar of the culture that you want to ripple effect out into the world. So anytime you get together, that is where culture is happening. And then from there, it expands out into the organization. And all of these sliders start to lift: care, sincerity, reliability, competence. Okay, try to point out successes 100%. Again, pointing back to psychological safety, making sure people learn from their mistakes and they can grow. Um, share my own failures with the team. Yeah, Krista, amazing. Ownership over perfection. I got it wrong, and here's what I'm doing about it. Amazing, great opportunity to learn. Acknowledge, ask questions, commit to follow through. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Guys, this is so important. Such a great conversation. Listen, it takes two people to create a pattern, but only one to change it. And that's a big part of this conversation. So, one or two of you, I'd love you to think about. So imagine you won't remember a thing out of today's meeting. What is the one thing that you would want to hold on to as a value from today's meeting that you would take with you? What is your one big thing coming out of today? You can drop it in the chat quick or come off mute and share. There's one big thing you're walking away from. And even if you just think on that for yourself, what is the thing you want to take away from today?
Luca, I just had a light bulb moment about 2 slides ago that I realized where I was thinking about a person in my life that I don't have trust with, and it's a person in my personal life. And when I was looking at the quadrant, I realized, gosh, they do care. They are sincere. I think they are competent some of the time, but the reliability part is what has created distrust with them. And so then when I was nudged to reflect on myself, I realized in trying to establish trust with them, I have had a gap on the care side because I haven't been empathetic. I haven't had the hard conversation. I haven't led with curiosity. And so it almost feels like an equal balance of responsibility. And so because they haven't been leaning into reliability, it's my role now to lean into the care side to build trust with them. And that was like a light bulb that went off for me today. So thank you.
Oh gosh, well, that is amazing. I can't really say it any better than that. Lynn from Visit Portland, great to see you. She says, great comment, Natalie. Yeah, so good. So really quickly, I know we've just had a short period of time together today. Keep an eye out in your inbox. You're going to receive a free trust resource that sort of talks a little bit about what we've talked about here today in one PDF that you can look at. And you'll also get a link to our brand new on-demand course, Accidental to Intentional, the Culture Journey, led by Natalie. So you'll get a lot of time with Natalie there. And of course, keep an eye out. Michelle, who's here, will be leading another of these Culture Journey series on connection in October. And Lorraine has one coming up about accountability. We'd love to have you all there. And really, that's our time for today. I really cannot thank you enough for being here. Thank you so much. I'll stay on the line a few minutes if you want to say hello, but really, please have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.